What's wrong, Marcus? Victoria asked. You look absolutely pale. Are you frightened? The light from the cell phone I had dropped reflected back into my face. Even with its light in my eyes, I could still make out the horrid figure looming above me. Did she say, "Your God?" I stammered. You worship that thing? I asked, still unable to peel my eyes from it. I took a few steps back, losing my balance in the process. Instantly, I fell back, slamming into the seated Hughes behind me. Sharp pain erupted from my back as I could feel the rush of air painfully forcing its way out of my mouth. I guessed it was true that the wind could literally be knocked out of you. I remained still, feeling the pain surge from my back. Marcus, you all right? Victoria asked, rushing to my side. Are you hurt? Instantly, there was a loud slam from a door behind us, flooding the room with a bright light. What in the hell is going on in here? An angry voice yelled out. Victoria popped up. Nothing. We were doing a little touring when Marcus had a tumble, she said, addressing the voice. Marcus? The voice responded in surprise. You brought an outsider into our area of worship. I could hear the voice's steps move at high pace until they halted next to us. My eyes hadn't completely adjusted to the light yet, so all I could see was a partially lit figure. A man, at least. Didn't matter who it was, though. They sounded angry regardless. This could be the moment I was going to be sent home. He fell. I'm not sure if he's injured himself or not, Victoria continued. The man sighed. He does look pretty banged up. Hey, can you at least move? He asked, looking down at me. I hadn't tried yet, but I attempted to move my arms and my legs. Despite the lingering pain from my back, nothing appeared to be broken. I think I'll be all right, I replied weakly. I slowly began to stand, feeling the man helping me up. Are you all right, Marcus? Victoria asked again. He'll be all right, the man said, helping me towards the light of the door. When my eyes eventually adjusted, I could finally make out their faces. It was Terrence. After reaching the exit, he shut the door to the room behind us. It felt good to be out there, back in the coolness of the lobby. Apparently, I'd been sweating because I could see the large spots across my chest. Now look here, I know you're our guest and all, but I'm going to need you to end your little exploring, he said to me, before turning his attention over to Victoria. As for you, you ought to know better. Matter of fact, you should be resting. We're lucky that didn't happen to you now with that baby. No more exploring. Else things like this happen, he said sharply. It felt like we were both being scolded as if we were children. Just remember, you're here for a job, he said, returning to me. So if you just stick to that, you'll be fine. You best go and wash up. Dinner'll be ready soon. Bathroom's at the end of the hall on the left. Just make sure you knock before you enter. Go on now. I nodded weakly, catching Victoria's apologetic eyes as I turned to leave. I wasn't mad at her for what had happened. How could I be? It was my own fault for clumsily falling like I did. I made my way back upstairs and cleaned up. By the time I finished, the time was 6:03 p.m. I knew Terrence had told me not to be late, but I didn't want to be the first one to show up either. I cut it too close and hastily made my way back down, heading through the doors on the left in the lobby. Coursing through the hallway, I caught the hint of food in the air. The smell gradually increased the closer I drew to the other side. By the time I had reached the end, my stomach was beginning to growl and protest. Even my mouth began to water. I approached a pair of double doors and I could see light coming through its cracks. Behind them, I could make out murmuring of voices. This was it, I thought. I took a deep breath and I pushed open the doors. The dining room on the other side was big, like fancy big. The vibe I felt reminded me of the formality back in the old days, early 1900s maybe. Several antique cabinets stood up against the walls. They had glass doors with the insides filled with priceless-looking treasures. Portraits ran along the walls portraying the faces of people, possibly ancestors of the sort, their eyes firmly staring forward as if a silent audience to the event. In the center of the room, a large table sat filled bountifully, plates, mountains of food and drinks. The other residents of the church could be seen standing around the table, chatting amongst themselves. However, their chatting ceased when the doors shut behind me. They all gazed at me silently. My nerves were through the roof, so I just stood there like a deer caught in headlights. What now? I thought. Finally, one of the women spoke out at me. You must be Marcus. Welcome, my dear. She had a British accent like Victoria's, and I quickly assumed that this had to have been her aunt. She was most likely in her mid-40s and a face lightly stained with wrinkles. She had dark hair tied neatly in a bun and wore a dress similar to Victoria's but with more red in it. "I'm Margaret. Pleased to meet you," she said, walking up to me. After shaking my hand, she guided me over to the others around the table. There were 4 others. One was a woman she introduced me to be Sophia, apparently the cousin Victoria had mentioned. I was surprised to hear that she didn't exhibit the same accent as either of the two. Instead, had the same country one as the Reverend. She was much younger than Margaret and probably a few years older than me. The next person was Terence, who I had already met. From him was another man about the same age as him, named Jesse. Lastly, she showed me Victoria. Couldn't hold back a smile when I saw her. She returned one as well. Margaret caught sight of this. "I take you've already met my niece," she stated with a teasing smile. "Well," started, beginning to blush. "Yes," Victoria said. "I was showing Marcus around earlier, trying to get him familiar with everything for when he starts his work." "I see," Margaret replied. "Well, come on now, dear. You sit over here." She led me to an empty chair near the end of the table next to her. Everyone else made their way behind their respective chairs, too. Victoria stood behind the chair across from my own. I was ready to pull the chair out and sit when I caught sight of her eyes beckoning me not to do so. I quickly corrected myself, realizing that everyone was still standing as well. "When the Reverend arrives, we can begin eating soon," Margaret said. "Please excuse him. He can run a little late sometimes." I chuckled a little to myself, thinking on Terrence's words from before. However, it wasn't long until everyone's attention turned to the doors opposite the end of the table. I hadn't realized it was there. I was curious to where it led, probably to the Reverend's quarters. The door opened and the Reverend came walking through. He still had his hobbled walk from earlier, his face still pressed with the same toothy grin. When he came through, everyone spoke in unison. "Evening, Reverend." His smile grew wider, at which he replied, "Evening, everyone." He pulled out his chair and sat down, gesturing for everyone to join him. We all followed suit. The food before us was truly a sight. There was many dishes flooded gracefully with food, rice dishes, fresh-looking vegetables like corn and baked potatoes, sliced breads, and even 3 roasted meats. A large silver platter sat before everyone along with rows of forks and knives around it. I noticed the many wine bottles spaced around the table. The food looked simply amazing, and I couldn't wait to eat. I was hesitant to make a move, unsure of their manner of etiquette. I decided to follow any and all actions of Victoria, probably the reason why she sat across from me. "Let us bow our heads for prayer," the Reverend announced. My eyes shifted over to Victoria. She bowed her head with one eye open, pressing a finger to her lips while looking at me. Then she placed her hands together. I nodded and did so too. From then, the air was silent. I wasn't sure how much time had elapsed, but it felt long, at least 5 minutes. I opened one eye to check to see if everyone was still praying. Everyone, including the Reverend, still had their eyes shut. I could see all of them mouthing something silently to themselves. Margaret, I could see, was holding tightly to a charm from her necklace up to her forehead. I could only make out partial amounts of it, but I was sure that it was the same emblem as in the congregation room. I also noticed that everyone had a similar ring, like Victoria, all on their ring finger. The rings each withheld the same emblem engraved within it. This made sense, since apparently they were keys to the room itself. I noticed Terence didn't have the ring on his finger. Instead, I saw it hanging from a necklace. When I looked at the Reverend, I saw that he had 2 rings. One was the same as the others, but the second one was different. I could tell the symbol wasn't the same, but the way his hands were positioned made it so I couldn't distinctly make it out. "Amen," the Reverend finally spoke aloud. On command, everyone's eyes opened. "Let us eat now," he said, raising his hands out. Everyone began grabbing at bowls or a plate, passing it around, filling their plate at their leisure. I was glad it was finally time to eat. I don't think my stomach could have taken another minute. I could feel my mouth watering even more, but I sat patiently, occasionally glancing over to Victoria for guidance. "So, Marcus," the Reverend spoke out, "Terence told me you took quite a tumble today." Hearing his voice gave me a jolt, snapping me out of whatever hunger trance I was in. Yes, sir," I managed to say. "Oh, dear, are you all right?" Margaret asked. "You didn't hurt yourself too bad, did you now?" "Oh, no, I'm fine," I answered. "A little sore, but I'll be all right." "That's good to hear," Sophia added. "Oh, where was this?" wouldn't want anyone else to do the same now. I swallowed a little, not wanting to explain that I had been somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. Somehow my eyes guided over to where Terrence sat. The glare from them felt unsettling, as if this look alone was punishing me. He was in the congregation room, he said sternly without removing his gaze upon me. Say what now? Jesse replied, joining in. How did he manage to get in there? Oh, he was helped by Victoria, Terrence announced without hesitation. The way he said it, though, it felt like he was dying to get it off his chest. It was like he was reporting a crime or something, expecting a reward. My eyes fell upon my plate, unable to meet anyone else's. I was unsure what would happen next at this point. Dear, Margaret said softly. Do you not have a candle on you, hon? She asked. I looked up quickly, surprised at her response. Victoria, she continued. You took him in there with no proper lighting. It's no wonder he banged himself up. I couldn't believe it. Here I thought I was going to hear a mouthful about invading their sanctuary, and instead they brushed it off like it was nothing. I glanced over at Terrence, who appeared to be just as surprised by this reaction. Instead, he grumpily turned his attention to his plate, unable to look at me in defeat. I looked over at the Reverend, and he too seemed unfazed, still smiling. No, I wasn't thinking when I did, Victoria answered. However, we were doing fine without a candle. It was more from the statue that startled Marcus. Margaret and the others laughed at this. Oh, I was dreadfully frightened too when I saw that thing as a child, she replied. It is quite a sight at first, Marcus, but I assure you, when you learn about Linus, you're going to truly understand him and what he is. I swallowed a little more at this. And what is he? I asked, leaning in a bit. Now, Margaret, the Reverend interrupted, chuckling a bit, we didn't bring the young man all the way up here to teach him a sermon. Give the young man a chance to eat. Of course, Margaret replied with a giggle. Eat up, Marcus. We don't waste anything around here, she said, passing a bowl of potatoes. I felt my stomach growl again at the sight of them. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about my hunger. I thanked her and I added it to my plate. I glanced over at Victoria, who gave me a slight nod of approval. I smiled and began receiving the other dishes being passed around.